Hi, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be my top 10 books of 2021. So this is kind of my wrap-up video of 2021. I decided to just share my top 10 books of this year. I do have another video that's coming that's also going to be kind of a wrap-up video, and it's all of my 5-star reads from 2021. I originally was just planning to do my top 10 reads, but there were just so many really great books, so that's why I also decided to do the 5-star reads. So that'll be coming soon. But yeah, I had a little bit of a difficult time choosing only 10 books because, like I said, I have read so many great books, but I'm just going to be sharing them in order. I did put them in order from like least favorite to favorite, but obviously I love all of these books so much because they are all of my top 10 reads. I am filming this kind of at the beginning of December, but I don't think any of the books I'm reading this month are going to be these 10 books. But yeah, let's just get into the video, starting with the first book, which was number 10, and that is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I talked about it, I'm pretty sure, in another video that I made about just like the saddest books I've ever read, and this one had me crying throughout the entire thing. But basically the two main characters, they meet, they fall in love really quickly, and within like 5 months they get married, and then 9 days after their wedding, the main love interest dies in a car accident. So obviously it's a very sad book, but it's also just a really amazing book. I literally love it so much. I don't think I could read it again because of how sad it was, but I just loved it so much. It's stuck with me since reading it. And the ending of this book, it's one of my favorite book endings ever. Just like the final line of it is just so good. It's like a great reminder. I don't want to give anything away, obviously, but it was just like one of those things that left me like thinking afterwards, and I just really love this book. I highly recommend it, but definitely be prepared for tears. The next book is the first in a series. I loved the entire series so much. I have also talked about it already on this channel. I did a book review for the whole series, but I am just highlighting the first one, which is Flock by Kate Stewart. These books all follow each other, so you do like need to read them in order for them to make sense, but this series is just so good, and I'm not going to say anything about it because it's one of those series that you just need to read without knowing anything, but I will put a link to that review if you want to know more. But it's just amazing. I want to say just trust me on it, but I also feel like it's one of those books that maybe isn't for everyone. But if you want to know more, you can definitely watch that review. It is kind of vague because like I said, it's just one of those books that you just need to go in knowing nothing, and it just makes the reading experience so much better. But this entire series, I love it so much. It's one of my favorite series that I've ever read, and yeah, I just loved it. It was so good, and the characters, there's like 3 different love interests throughout it, and I just loved all of them. But I wish I could just like say more about it, but I also don't want to because you just need to read it and not know anything. But if you've heard of this series and have been thinking about reading it, I highly recommend it. I was hesitant for the longest time because I didn't know anything about it, and then I went into it and I loved it. The next book, number 8, is The Deal, which is the first book in the Off-Campus series. This series is interconnected standalone, so you don't have to like read them in order, but this one is the first book. I think it's the best of all of the books. It's one of those books that I can read over and over again. I love these characters, this couple, they're like one of my favorite couples. This book is just like a comfort book for me, and I just love the main love interest, Garrett. He is just a perfect book boyfriend. I literally love him so much, and this book is just so cute. It is a sports romance, and the love interest is a hockey player. They are college students, and I have done videos about the series. I just got really into it this year, which I didn't expect. I just bought this book, and I wasn't really planning to read the rest like soon after that, but then I just became obsessed with it and I read them all like really quickly. But yeah, this book is just a really entertaining book to read. It's not like the best book out there, but I just really love it a lot, and it's just one of those books that I enjoy reading over and over. Book number 7 is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This is another book that I highlighted recently in my rom-com book recommendations. It's best friends to lovers, and they go on vacations together, so throughout the book you kind of see like their different vacations each year, and that's something I really loved because I love to travel, so I love in books when we get to see them kind of going to different destinations and doing things. But this book is just so cute. It's like everything I could have wanted in a book. I just loved it so much, and I loved these characters so much, and Emily Henry is just a really great author, and I really love her writing. Book number 6 is another Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and that's One True Loves. I love this book so much. It's literally so good. They're turning it into a movie, so you should definitely read it before the movie comes out. But this book, it is a love triangle kind of. I know a lot of people aren't really fans of love triangles, but it was just done so well. I think what I really liked about it was that I didn't know who she was going to end up with in the end, and I think that's what made it better, because I feel like a lot of the time in love triangles there's always like an obvious kind of choice, but I feel like with this one it wasn't obvious at all, and I just like literally had no idea how it was going to end, so it just made it like a much more intriguing read. But it basically follows this woman named Emma, and she gets married to her childhood sweetheart. They go and kind of live this dream life where they like travel the world, and then on their 1-year wedding anniversary he has a work assignment and his helicopter crashes and he goes missing. And so Emma is just grieving after that, and she eventually moves on. It's like years later, she meets this new guy, she's engaged to him now, and then she gets a call and it's her husband, and he tells her that he's alive and that he's coming home. And on top of this book just being like so interesting, like I literally read it almost in a day, it also just had a really great message. I really loved the ending of it. It's just such a great book. It definitely made me cry quite a bit, but it does have a happy ending, and I just highly recommend it. This is my favorite book by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Okay, so as I'm filming this, I literally just changed the order of my books. So this next book was originally number 3. I just bumped it down to number 5 because the books that are going to come after this, I realized that I love them even more. But number 5 is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. So this book is a best friends to lovers rom-com. I also talked about it in my rom-com book recs, but it's absolutely adorable. I was literally smiling the entire time while I was reading it. It's just really cute. It's really funny. I really loved both of the main characters in this book, and I feel like it kind of gets some mixed reviews from what I've seen, but I personally loved it. I thought it was a great book. It was another one of those books that I just felt like was the perfect book that I would want to read. It was like everything I wanted in a book. So book number 4 is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. So this book is kind of a more serious book. It deals with more serious topics, so definitely check trigger warnings if you need to with this one. Well, with all these books, but this one especially. I didn't really know what it was about going into it. It does follow this couple where they meet in the past, and then now I think it's like 7 years later, and they're married and they're kind of having troubles in their marriage. And I've also talked about this book before on my channel, but it's definitely an emotional read. It made me cry, but it has a happy ending, and I just ended up really loving it. The characters did do some things that I didn't love, but overall it was just a really amazing story. I remember when I first read it, I didn't really have high hopes for it. It didn't seem like a story I would really enjoy, and then it ended up becoming one of my favorite books of all time. So now we're in the top 3, and book number 3 is Ugly Love, also by Colleen Hoover. But again, this is just one of those books that I think had a really beautiful message. I really loved it. I loved the whole idea of the story, and I loved the ending. And this is another book that had a really great ending. It was like one of my favorite book endings that I've read. Book number 2 is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. Again, another book I've talked about before. This is a enemies to lovers rom-com. They are co-workers, and they have to fake date because the main character needs a date for her sister's wedding, and he volunteers to go with her. And like I said, I've talked about this book before, but I loved it so much. It's my favorite rom-com of all time. It's just so cute. I really love the characters and their relationship. I've talked about Aaron before, but Aaron, he is the main love interest. He's like my favorite book boyfriend ever. He's just so sweet, and I just literally love him so much. It is a little bit slow, but it's one of those books that you kind of just have to like be patient with and give it a chance, because by the end it's just so good. I just love this book so much. I loved Aaron, and it's just one of those books that I just always think about and always want to talk about. The next book is my favorite book of this year and my favorite book of all time. I've said that before, and I've talked about this book before. So my top read of 2021 was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is another book where I don't want to get too into what it's about, because I feel like it's so much better if you don't know too much, but definitely check trigger warnings if you need to. And like I said, I've talked about this book on this channel before, so I won't go into too much about it, but it's just one of the most amazing books I've ever read in my life. I just think everyone should read it. It has a really great message, and it's one of those books that has really stuck with me. I read it basically at the beginning of this year, and I still think about it almost every day, and I just really loved it. It's one of those books that like really impacted me and just like changed the way I thought about things. And on top of that, I'm just really grateful that I found this book and that I read it this year, because it's what finally got me back into reading. And since then I have read about 80 books this year, which is a huge accomplishment for me, because in the past few years I have barely read any books. So the fact that I've already read 80 this year is just crazy to me, and it's all thanks to this book. Like, this is what basically got me back into reading, because I just loved it so much and I wanted to read more. And it's also what basically got me into the book community, because after I read it I just like needed to talk about it. So that's why I started my Bookstagram account, and that eventually led to me starting my YouTube and like TikTok and all that. So I just love this book, and I am just really grateful for it, and I highly recommend it. So those were my top 10 books of this year. Like I said, it was pretty hard to narrow it down. I read a lot of really great books, but these were just the ones that really stood out that I loved so much. But let me know if any of these were also some of your favorites, or if you've read read any of these, or just let me know what your favorite book was from this year. And that's it for this video. Please subscribe if you like this and want to see more, and thank you so much for watching.